What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. It's been a minute since I've put out a video because we've been crazy busy. So that's really good for the shop, but I wanted to put together kind of an update, and instead of doing one long kind of multi-part video, I'm just going to separate it out into a couple of different videos over the next kind of few days. So today's video is going to be updating you on the shop itself. We've added a bunch of new big, heavy machines. A lot of things that I've wanted for a long time with some pretty cool stories on how I got them. So that'll be today's video. The next one you'll see after that is probably going to be the update on this guy. This is the white CB550 you guys saw in the last video. This build is 99% done. We're just waiting for one little Honda logo to come in, and this thing will be complete. So I'll give you guys a video on this of just a full overview of the build, what we did, anything that was kind of different than other builds we've done, just kind of update you on that status. Then the bike to my left is going to be another video we're going to do. It's just another customer bike that hasn't run in a couple of years, so it'll be kind of a will it run maintenance style video, but it's on a bike that I haven't done a video on before. Of course, it's a classic Honda, so don't be surprised, but it is a different model, and I'll show you guys that bike here in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and update you guys on these new machines. So the first new addition I want to cover is my mill. So I finally got a mill. Those of you guys who followed my channel for a little bit of time know that I've constantly mentioned wanting one of these, and I finally found a good deal on a really good condition one. So this particular one is a Millport. It is a direct clone of a Bridgeport. Bridgeport is probably the biggest manufacturer of these style mills. They've been making them for like 70 years at least. And this one is 1982, so about 40 years old, but it is in really, really good shape. I don't think the guy that had it before me used it all that often. And I actually found this at an estate sale. So I've been looking, you know, keeping an eye on Craigslist and auctions and Facebook Marketplace and stuff for a mill for, you know, realistically probably 8 months or so, almost every day. And this one popped up. It was at an estate sale. It was actually on the last day of the estate sale, which they generally do like 50% off of everything. This was still there. They had it listed for $3,000 and they honored the 50% off. So I actually got this for $1,500, which if you're not familiar, in the last 8 months, I have not seen another mill anywhere close to this condition sell for that price at all. This is like, I could probably turn around and sell this thing for $2,500, $2,800. No questions asked. This also came with a big Kurt milling vise, power feeds, a bunch of tools, collets, chucks, all kinds of stuff. So the only thing I really think I still need for this is probably a DRO. If you're not familiar with what a DRO is, it's basically a digital readout. It is kind of like a little screen that tells you exactly where your tables are. It makes it easier to cut like precise hole patterns and that kind of stuff. So I want to get one of those for it, and then I need to continue to get some more tooling for it as well. So like I said, it came with a good amount of collets and stuff, but I want to get like a rotary table, and all of those things, if you're not familiar with machining, will make more sense over the next couple of months as I learn how to use this machine, because in all honesty, I don't really know how to use it. How I typically operate is I like to get my hands on something new and then play with it, and I learn, you know, best by doing. That's kind of how I learned how to TIG weld. I bought a TIG welder and then had a bunch of metal and a bunch of argon and just messed around. And I'm still learning, but that's kind of the way I like to do things. So I have to give a big shout out to my best friend Dustin and my stepdad for helping me move this beast. We did have to take it part of the way apart and winch it onto my trailer. It was a big pain to get it loaded. It wasn't so bad to get it unloaded, but still, I have to thank them for helping me get this like 2,200 pound beast back here in the shop. It is fully wired and everything ready to go. I've used it just a little bit, basically as a glorified drill press. But over the next couple of months, like I said, we're going to learn how to put this thing to proper use. And I hope it you know, ups my fabrication game just a little bit. Let's show you the next thing. This is the next tool I acquired since you guys have seen me last. This is a Pexto Stomp Shear. So what that does is it kind of acts like a big pair of scissors, for lack of a better term, and allows you to cut perfectly straight lines in sheet metal. This particular shear is designed to cut up to 16 gauge sheet metal up to 36 inches long. I don't think I'll ever cut anything quite that long, but if you're cutting out, a battery box and I need to cut quite a few straight lines in sheet metal, this is so much easier than like the angle grinder with a cutoff wheel that I'm using now. There is a big cast iron table that goes right here. That's down here on my dolly. This machine is partly taken apart, as you can see. I bought it exactly how you see it, and I do plan to do a full restoration of this machine. So blast off all this rust, take all the hardware off, clean it all up, give it a good paint job, make sure the blades are all in good condition and sharp and rust free, and basically bring it back to its former glory, and then put this thing to use over the next couple of years. It's going to save me a lot of time. So these particular shears in fully operational, good, clean condition are anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500. I paid $100 for this. So I think that's a really, really good deal. We have a little bit of damage on this little finger holder, I'm going to call it. It's basically like a piece that comes down and helps to hold your metal. It is complete all through the center and onto the left side, so as long as we put our pieces in the center and cut them, I think it's not gonna hurt our functionality. In the future, we may see if we can find a replacement for this, or figure out some other solution. But for the price I paid, I think it's a really good deal. I'll probably make a video on the full restoration of this thing, and it'll make a little bit more sense how it works if you're not familiar. But let's move on to the biggest / heaviest / most exciting tool I've added to the shop. So here is the beast. I finally got a lathe. So this is a closing, Colchester closing. It's kind of like a combination. Those two companies kind of teamed up, and I think they're closing in the US and Colchester in England. Either way, this is from, best I can tell, mid to late 60s. This is a 15 by 48 lathe, which means I can cut up to a 15-inch diameter piece, up to 48 inches long. The coolest thing about this lathe is how I got it. So let me just tell you this story real quick. About a week ago, I was on Instagram, just kind of flipping through, as everyone does, and I saw this post pop up from Alan, who is the owner of Revival Cycles, the people that own and put on the hand-built show here in Austin every year. And he posted a picture of this lathe and said, if anybody's looking for a lathe, DM me. I have a Colchester lathe that's free if you come pick it up right now. So I freak out because I've obviously been in the market for a lathe probably even longer than I've wanted a mill. So I immediately direct message him, don't hear anything back for a while. I'm watching this post kind of blow up, and people from other motorcycle shops around the country are like, oh, please, I want it. Mike Finnegan from Roadkill, all these other like celebrities and stuff are posting on there. And I'm like, man, there's no way, he's going to give it to me. About a half an hour after that, he direct messaged me on Instagram and says, hey, here's my phone number, give me a call. I immediately call him and he goes, hey dude, you were the first one. Here's the address of where we're at. My guys and I are here right now. We have a forklift. We can help you load it. So I jump in the truck, hook up the trailer, shoot down there, and sure enough, they had gotten a few other machines out of this warehouse, and they didn't need this one. It does obviously need a little bit of love, so they weren't like trying to profit or anything. They were just like, hey, we got these other machines. We want this one to go to a good home. So I literally got this lathe for free from the owner of Revival Cycles, which I think is just a really awesome story. So these lathes are ones that are worth restoring, in my opinion. They have been around for a very, very long time. It's a very good, reputable brand. I cleaned out probably 60 pounds of metal chips out of this thing yesterday, so I have no reason to think that this doesn't work, but I have not seen it work yet. So what I want to do first and foremost, before we kind of dive into a full restoration on this thing, is to make sure that all of the core components are functioning the way they should. So I need to get a 10 horsepower variable frequency drive. This has a 5 horsepower motor in it, and from the research I've done, you should get a variable frequency drive that's rated for twice the capacity of your motor. So once I get that, I can wire it up If you're not familiar with what a variable frequency drive does, it takes the single phase power that's in everyone's house here in the US, converts it to 3-phase power, which is what these big industrial motors run off of. So I already have a phase converter for the mill. So basically I need the same kind of device to be able to run this off of my standard 220 single phase residential power. Then I can make sure the motor works, the gearbox and all this kind of stuff works properly. There is a little bit of play in like the carriage here. You can see there's like, this is kind of loose, and I'm gonna need to take this thing apart and show it some love, but for $3, I think it's pretty stinking awesome. Once we confirm that all of that works, I do need to buy quite a bit of accessories, we'll call them, for it. So I'm gonna need to get a chuck to actually be able to hold the work, tool holder, a bunch of tooling. I don't have any lathe tools. And the biggest piece, and I think probably the hardest piece to find, is unfortunately this lathe did not come with a tailstock. So the tailstock is a piece that kind of goes in the back of the lathe here, slides back and forth, allows you to put a drill bit or whatever in it to be able to drill holes through the center of your parts. So anytime you need to like bore a hole or anything like that, you need to utilize a tailstock. And unfortunately this guy, the tailstock, who knows where it went, it wasn't on the machine when we got there. So I'm going to need to find, ideally, a Colchester original tailstock. If not, maybe I can find another lathe that's of a similar size. So we'll figure that out later. The machine's still usable without it, but it is going to be one of those accessories I need to track down at some point. So this is probably the machine I'm the most excited about, but it is going to be a good amount of labor to get this thing up and running. I do plan, like I said, to do a full restoration, paint, bring it back to its former glory so that I can do another 50 years of service, hopefully 50 years in my shop. Before we finish out the update video, I want to give you guys just a walk around of the shop to kind of show the new layout. So I put the lathe up here mainly because it was closest to my sub panel for me to be able to hook it up to power. I don't think it's going to live here long term. Once I get it up and running and make sure everything works properly, I will probably figure out somewhere in that back corner or something to put it, just so it's not flinging metal chips onto my car. And then also it's a little bit on the big side to be stuck up here. I still do have some room to get by, but pushing a bike by here is going to be a little bit tight, and I'd rather not be rubbing handlebars up next to the fender of my car. So we'll figure out the permanent location for that in a little while. My welding table is right here now. I do have some plans to modify this welding table, and we'll make a video on that in the future. I need to kind of update or upgrade these casters. I want to lift it up a little bit, maybe build a table to hold the TIG welder underneath, because the TIG welder will probably just live here, and do some modifications to that. Vapor blaster and everything's in the same spot. This is the bike we're going to be doing the will it run / maintenance and everything video on in the next couple of days. This is a customer bike, CB450. I believe this one is a 1974, if I'm not mistaken. We got to basically go through, clean the carbs, finish installing an electronic ignition. We might have to replace the clutch. Just some kind of general run through maintenance. It's only been a couple of years since this bike has run, so I don't expect it to give us too much of a fight to come back to life, but that's yet to be determined. This is the 550 you guys will see the next video on. Turned out really nice. I want to do a how-to video on paint as well, now that I have the process down pretty darn good for a DIY home in your garage paint job that anybody can do. So I'll show you guys that. We will probably utilize the CB500 restoration bike that's kind of hiding over there next to my car to be able to show you guys that process. And then back here, I just moved my workbench in this configuration so that I can have the buffers and sanders and everything right here. Have a little walkway to get by so that we can still get to the metal saw, the brake, all that kind of stuff. So the shop is kind of constantly evolving and becoming more and more efficient. The shear is going to end up replacing this table. I also want to build a stand for my iron worker, and we just got a lot of stuff going on around here to make this place more efficient and me be able to kind of increase my quality of work and my capabilities. And I'm just kind of excited to grow. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now, so I want to kind of get a bunch of content out so that if you guys are, stuck at home, that you guys have some interesting stuff to watch. So expect to see a couple of videos out of me over the next week, and then, I don't know, we'll go from there. So everybody stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys soon.